So it's 2025. How does a phone that came out 6 years ago, all the way back in 2019, actually feel today? That's the big question we're going to answer. Hey everyone, and welcome. This right here is my iPhone 11. In this, really nice purple color, but this isn't just any iPhone 11. For this review, I've basically created the perfect version of what this phone can be in 2025. First, I just had the battery replaced, so we're at a fresh 100% battery health. And second, I'm running the latest iOS 26 beta. So we're looking at old hardware with a brand new heart and the newest possible software. So in this video, we're going to do a few things. First, we'll take a quick look back at what made this phone so special when it first launched. Then we'll see how it actually performs today. The design, the screen, the performance, battery, and the cameras. We'll talk a lot about the software because iOS 26 is a huge part of this story. And finally, I'll give you my honest verdict on who should actually buy this, who should keep it, and who should definitely upgrade. So if you're thinking about the iPhone 11 in 2025, stick around. Before we get into 2025, I think it's really important to remember why the iPhone 11 was such a big deal back in 2019. It wasn't just another iPhone, it really set a new standard for the base model. The first huge thing was the chip. It had the A13 Bionic, which Apple called the fastest chip ever in a smartphone at the time. And honestly, they weren't exaggerating. This chip was so far ahead of the competition, and as we'll see, that's the #1 reason this phone is still relevant today. Apple made a critical choice to put its top-tier processor in its most affordable new phone, not a watered-down version. That created a massive performance buffer that has taken years for software and apps to catch up to, and it's the foundation of this phone's incredible longevity. Second, this was the phone that brought the ultra-wide camera to the standard iPhone for the first time. Before this, you had to buy the expensive Pro model to get more than one lens on the back. The 11 democratized creative photography, letting you get those huge expansive shots. And finally, maybe the biggest feature of all, night mode. This was Apple's answer to Google's Night Sight, and it was, a total game changer. It used computational photography to pull incredible photos out of near darkness. These three things, a flagship chip, a versatile camera system, and amazing low light performance, were a killer combo, especially since Apple actually dropped the price from its predecessor, the iPhone XR. Okay, let's talk about the design. Holding this in 2025 is honestly really comfortable. This was the last generation with these rounded pebble-like aluminum edges before Apple switched to the flat-sided design. For me, this just feels better in the hand. It doesn't dig into your palm. This purple color has also held up really well, and the glossy glass back still feels premium. But when you turn it on, that's where you see its age. This is a liquid retina LCD screen, not an OLED like on all the new iPhones. The colors are good thanks to Apple's tuning, but the blacks aren't truly black and it doesn't get as bright as modern phones. And the resolution is technically below full HD, it's 1792 by 828 pixels. Now in day-to-day use with a pixel density of 326 ppi, it still looks sharp. You're not gonna see individual pixels, but if you put it side by side with a newer iPhone, you can definitely tell the difference. The screen is probably the biggest single hardware compromise you make with this phone in 2025. It's interesting to think that this very compromise is what allowed Apple to price it so competitively back in 2019, making it a massive bestseller. So the thing that makes it feel most dated today is also a key reason so many people bought one in the first place. So with that older screen, you might expect it to feel slow, but it really doesn't. For day-to-day stuff, scrolling social media, sending messages, browsing the web, it's still incredibly smooth. Apps open quickly and swiping between them feels great, especially with the new animations in iOS 26. I actually ran Geekbench 6 on it, and the results are pretty impressive for a 6-year-old chip. I got a 1762 on single core and a 35 and 47 on multi-core. That single core score is still really competitive and explains why the phone feels so responsive for basic tasks. It's that A13 Bionic chip just refusing to quit. When it comes to gaming, it's a bit of a mixed bag. For games that aren't super demanding like eFootball or FIFA Mobile, it's fantastic. The gameplay is really smooth, no stutters, it's a great experience. But when you fire up a really demanding game like Genshin Impact, you can feel the limits of the A13 chip. It's still playable for sure, but you have to lower the graphic settings, and even then, it's not gonna be a locked 60 frames per second. The phone also gets noticeably warm. So for casual gaming, it's great, but for competitive high-end gaming, you'll want a newer device. Okay, battery life. With this brand new 100% health battery, it's been really good. I can easily get through a full day of my normal usage, some social media, messaging, taking a few pictures, listening to music, and still have some charge left by the evening. It's basically performing like it was brand new. But, and this is probably the most important piece of advice in this whole video, this is only because the battery is new. If you buy a used iPhone 11 in 2025, it will almost certainly have a degraded battery. You absolutely must factor in the cost of a battery replacement. Without it, you will not have a good experience. A new battery is what makes this phone viable as a daily driver today. Now, the camera is another area where the iPhone 11 is surprisingly good, with some big caveats. In good daylight, the main 12 megapixel camera still takes fantastic photos. They're sharp, the colors are natural, it holds up really well. For posting on Instagram or just capturing memories, it's more than enough. The ultra wide is also really fun to have, but in low light, you start to see the age. Night mode on the main camera is still decent, but it's much slower and the results aren't as clean as on newer phones. And the ultra-wide camera really struggles in the dark. The photos get pretty soft and noisy. You also don't have a telephoto lens for optical zoom, so you're relying on digital zoom, which isn't great. So the verdict is, it's still a really solid point-and-shoot camera for daytime and social media. It can even beat some brand new budget Android phones. But if camera versatility and low-light performance are your top priorities, you'll feel the limitations. Now let's talk about what is, for me, the most exciting part of using this phone in 2025, the software. I'm running the iOS 26 beta, and I have to say, Apple has worked some magic here. This is the oldest iPhone to even get iOS 26, as the XR and XS were cut off this year, and it runs beautifully. The whole new design, which Apple calls liquid glass, just makes the phone feel modern. The icons have this new translucent look, the animations are incredibly fluid, and everything just feels new. I mean, it makes older versions like iOS 18 feel ancient in comparison. The gap in design and animation is huge. I've gotten so used to this new look. I'm genuinely impressed that Apple is still giving a 6-year-old phone such a major transformative update. It's not just bug fixes, it's a whole new user experience. This level of long-term support is one of the biggest reasons to consider an older iPhone. Okay, but there's a huge new feature in iOS 26 that the iPhone 11 does not get. Apple Intelligence. All the new AI-powered writing tools, the image generation, the super smart Siri. This phone just doesn't have the hardware to run it. Apple says you need a newer chip and more RAM, specifically at least 8 gigabytes, which this phone doesn't have. And honestly, for me, right now, that's not a deal breaker. And here's why. Apple Intelligence, it's still in its early days. It's basically in beta. For the heavy-duty AI stuff, I usually find myself turning to other tools anyway. Alternatives that are more mature and often more powerful, like Gemini or ChatGPT, I can just use their apps. So while it would be nice to have it integrated, the lack of Apple Intelligence on this phone in 2025 doesn't feel like a major loss to me yet. What's really happening here is a shift in how phones become old. It used to be that a phone was obsolete when it stopped getting updates. Now, the iPhone 11 gets the update but not the headline feature. It's a clever way for Apple to encourage upgrades without cutting off support entirely. So to quickly recap, if you're considering the iPhone 11 in 2025, here's what you're giving up. 1. No 5G, you're on 4G LTE, which is still fast enough for most things, but it's not the latest and greatest. 2. No MagSafe. You can't use any of those cool magnetic chargers or accessories without a special case. 3. The LCD display. As we talked about, it's good, but it's not the vibrant, high-contrast OLED you get on newer phones. And 4. Future software uncertainty. It gets iOS 26, which is amazing, but this could very well be its last major OS update. Security updates will likely continue for another year or so, but iOS 27 is a big question mark. So the big question, is the iPhone 11 still worth it in 2025? It depends entirely on who you are. For the person considering buying one on a budget, yes, I think it can be a fantastic value, but only if you can find one for a great price. I'm talking well under $200 and you absolutely must replace the battery. Think of it as a sub $300 package for a phone that still feels fast and gets the latest OS. It's a much better experience than most new Android phones at that price. For the current user who is happy with their iPhone 11, honestly, don't rush to upgrade. Your phone just got a new lease on life with iOS 26. If your battery is still holding up, save your money and wait for a bigger leap in technology. it still does 95% of what the new phones do for day-to-day tasks. And for the current user who is frustrated with their iPhone 11, if you're feeling the slowdown, if you're annoyed by the low light photos, if you want a brighter, smoother screen, or you need 5G, then yes, it's time. Upgrading to even an iPhone 13 or 14 will feel like a night and day improvement across the board. For me, this purple iPhone 11 is a testament to how well Apple built this thing. The fact that it's still this capable, still this usable 6 years later is pretty remarkable. It's not the best anymore, not by a long shot, but it's far from useless. But that's just my take. I'm really curious to know what you all think. Are you still using an iPhone 11 in 2025? What's your experience been like, especially with the newer software? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this helpful, a like is always appreciated, and subscribe for more tech reviews like this one. I'll see you in the next one.